All right, we've got Robert Sullivan the fourth back in Grimerica after the launch of his, I think it's his fifth book, Cinema Symbolism 3, The Mysteries of Occult Hollywood Unveiled. It's a great book to talk about. And he's also a Freemason and a lawyer, and he's been doing all kinds of research on this stuff for a long time now. I think it's the third time we've had you on, Robert. Welcome back.
Yeah, well, thank you guys. Thank you for having me on Grimerica. It's my pleasure to be here. Yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for. I mean, I've been doing the research now for at least 20 years, going back to 2000, even before that. And yeah, this is the fifth book and the third in the movie series, and it was released earlier this year. I'm happy with the way it came out, and it's again my pleasure to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy the way it came out as well, and I feel like we've come so far in the last, let's say, like 4 years since we had you on last. Probably, I mean, it's even hard for me to remember the details of the first couple Cinema Symbolism books, but reading this one now, I feel like we've come a long ways, or I've come a long way with my esoteric wisdom and even just Hollywood as well, like just what's happened in the last few years of Hollywood. But I feel like you went a little bit deeper and darker in this book. It seems like you went a little bit more esoteric, getting right into like the some of the sort of secret societies right when like even before Hollywood even was a thing, you know. I feel like you got into the depth of it right away. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. I mean, yeah, we've been doing this for a while now, and I mean, I think you said 3 times. That sounds about right. And I think the last time we did this, I think I did it over a landline phone. I mean, so even the technology, has come a long way. And yeah, I mean, even in my first book, The Royal Arch of Enoch, was really the first. That was first originally released in 2012. I mean, it's hard to believe it's almost been 10 years now. I mean,
well, it's been 7 since you came on the show almost. So
yeah, I mean, exactly. And it was in that one that I
since
started
the first
getting into
time.
the movies.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's been a while. I mean, I mean, I think I probably came on with you guys back then. Probably was like at 13 or so.
Episode number 26.
Yeah, that's right.
October 27th, 2013.
Wow.
Yep.
So actually, closer to 8 years ago. I mean, you were really one of our original guests. We only started the podcast June of that year. So you were the 26th guest, clearly.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And yeah, I mean, it was something I got into right away with the Royal Arch, and then of course I did the first movie book, and then the second one, and now here's the third one out. And yeah, I mean, I was telling someone else, I mean, I can't believe it's been 10 years has gone by, and from the publication of the first book, and then like you said, 8 years almost coming up for the first time I was on Grimerica. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it. I mean, I know for me personally, doing this research, a lot of the research, in my opinion, on it has evolved over the years, and even into the third book. And like I said, I'm going to take that, and I've already started outlining a fourth book. So that's one of my on my plate of things to do, as it were.
Yeah, well, even like you say in this book here, I've got a couple highlights here. You said, because of the strange, almost supernatural nature of movie symbolism, it's easy to oscillate between two extremes: demoniacal conspiratorial agenda and coincidence.
Absolutely. I mean, it absolutely is. You can, if you look hard enough, you can see things that are really, really strange. And then some of it you can kind of, it seems sinister, and then you can kind of like, do some research into it, and it's completely innocent. It's completely innocuous. And you do have these two extreme, and then you do have a middle ground also where, you have a filmmaker who is clearly familiar with something or wants to pay an homage or a tribute to something, and, puts an Easter egg in, which is, kind of a highlight, as it were, that's, interesting but innocent. So you do have, this whole thing with, this idea of this, vast demonic conspiracy going on, and then you have stuff that's appearing that could be coincidence, and then you have times where it's just an Easter egg, and you have to reconcile the three, and always wrestling with, well, how is this happening? Is it intentional? Is it unintentional? Is there something more sinister going on? Is it innocent? And this is something that I'm constantly struggling with and trying to reconcile with my books, because some of it is quite very startling and uncanny, but like I said, some of it, you can kind of research and maybe dispel a little bit of, or come up with an alternative, that's the better word, explanation for it.
That's interesting, because we should have him on again too, David Charles Plate on.
Yeah.
A few times, and he's like, I don't know what we would call him, like a synchro mystic type guy. And he's like, that's sort of his thing. He's like, some of these weird connections can't be intentional.
Yeah,
like
or human, or human almost,
at least not human intentional. Like
I agree. No, I agree with that. I mean, there are some things that I talk about in the book that are not possibly human, and I think that's something I was on with another show, and I said, I think in some instances the non-intentional stuff, I think, can be even more interesting than the intentional stuff, because the non-intentional stuff, the non-intentional material, the non-intentional coincidences, casts this almost into the realm of the supernatural.
Yeah.
So can you like take us through one of those ones that you were just like, because correct me if I'm wrong, is this a newer thing, or have you sort of had that thought in the back of your head for all three books?
Yeah, it's been there. It's been there since the first book, since the first movie book. I can't recall if I got into this in the Royal Arch of Enoch. I might have, but I don't think so. I know a couple things that stand out to me. One is sort of movie related and entertainment related. The other is around a person, and again, and this is something I've talked about before, is the one thing that always is astounded me is the 9/11 imagery that leads up to the actual event, to September 11th, 01, and how it becomes more pronounced as it gets closer to the actual event. And some of it is just really uncanny. I mean, even when you're getting into the timing of this stuff. I mean, for example, and I don't have this written down in front of me, and I'm just doing this off the top of my head, but like, for example, if you look at 9/11, I mean, some of the stuff we've talked about before, and I probably even talked about it with you, with like Neo's passport and the Matrix, but some of it is like, you look at the movie Fight Club with Brad Pitt. That came out in 1999, I want to say. I mean, this has clear 9/11 imagery in it, with the collapse of the buildings at the end. I mean, you have the destruction of the piece of artwork in that, which resembles the sphere, which sat at the World Trade Center towers. I mean, you have Tyler Durden referring to the destruction of the buildings at the end of as Ground Zero. I mean, if that wasn't interesting enough, or controversial enough, the movie Fight Club was released on, I believe, and I'm just estimating this, on September 21st, 1999. I mean, it's almost 2 years to the date of the event. And then you go back 3 years earlier than that, where you have the Simpsons episode. I think it's called Homer Simpson versus New York City. And of course, this is the one we've all seen a million times, where Bart holds up the money in front of the program, which has 9/11 on it, and the 11 is formed by the Twin Towers. That episode was released also, I believe, on September 21st, 21st, 1996 or 97. So you almost had this like synchronicity, countdown going on time-wise, related to the event. I mean, and to me, that cannot be, that to me does not strike me as a human hand behind that. That has to have, to me, you're getting into the world of almost like Carl Jung, the collective unconscious. I mean, something supernatural going on with this, in my opinion.
I think you had another example in your book where you talked about the Gnostic loop being closed between the murder of somebody that was in a movie, and they ended up in that same place. And I thought I highlighted it, but I can't I can't remember
off the top of
exactly
my
which
head,
one it was, but it was another one of those things where it was real life and movies and murders and everything that sort of coalesced into this Gnostic circle that ended up being closed.
Yeah, I mean, well, you had the. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. You have the one thing where, I mean, you had this. The 9/11 stuff isn't the only thing. I mean, you have when it comes to entertainment. I mean, the one that I also pointed out right at the very beginning was you have the movie The China Syndrome, which is about a nuclear reactor meltdown coming out right before the 3 Mile Island, and then you had there's some interesting synchronicity going on with I believe the one thing you might have been talking about was the Dakota apartment building with John Lennon and Rosemary's Baby being filmed there, and Helter Skelter inspiring Charles Manson, and of course murdering Sharon Tate.
Yes,
and
that's
Lennon,
the one. Yeah.
And Lennon of course lived there and then was shot by Mark David Chapman. It's a complex. I'm just highlighting it, but it was a bit of a loop there almost with that one. And again, that to me is absolutely beyond the realm of a human hand. That definitely strikes me as something supernatural. And then the other one was I'll just mention briefly. And this was something I talked about in the very first movie book. And this is one of the most interesting things I've ever seen. I don't have the highlights in front of me. But I talked about it in the first movie book, and it was so interesting. I thought that I actually got into I dedicated a chapter to it in the third book. Was this whole idea of this solar, and I don't know any other way to describe it. This solar symbolism, almost surrounding Elvis Presley, and it's uncanny. I mean, it is just astounding. And it relates to the sun god Apollo, who is also the god of music. And of course, Elvis is the king of rock and roll. And it's just amazing to me, I mean, how much solar symbolism it surrounds the life of Elvis Presley. It's truly remarkable. And again, it can't be explained. It's not a human hand. It's completely supernatural. An example of synchronicity, or as you say, synchromysticism, maybe. It's really astounding. And, and it can't be. It's not planned. I mean, it just cannot be planned. And that's something else I talked about originally in the first book, in the first movie book, and I was so blown away by it that I dedicated a whole chapter to it in the third book.
Yeah,
that's like some of the moon synchronicities, man. It's just like, what is going on here? Is it just some messed up computer game, or are they just messing with us on a that'd be a crazy level if they were just messing with us. I don't know to what end.
Yeah, I mean, I always find it with the movies. There's some things in there that I know are intentionally placed there, and again, it gets into the level of sophistication with the filmmaker. Some are better than others, but again, there's some of this stuff that you just can't make up. But there it is. So you try to reconcile it as the best you can. And I do find that sometimes, at least for me, I do turn to the supernatural realm. And again, I get into a lot of psychology with it in the book with Carl Jung, the collective unconscious. Could this be, somehow a predictive mechanism as well? But again, it's in there. And I guess I get asked this also, and I'll just get into the briefly. This is one of the reasons why I like talking about this, and I analyze it and write books about it. Is the one thing with the movie and the symbolism and the entertainment, whatever. The one thing that always fascinates me with this is it's an interesting study because it's unlike something like UFOs and Bigfoot, where, as interesting as that may be, you always are left with the question of, is it a UFO, a genuine flying saucer? Is it a hoax, the planet Venus? And same thing with same thing with Bigfoot, something like that. Is it really Sasquatch, or is it a guy in a gorilla suit? With the movie symbolism and the things going on in the films, that's not the case. You can see it. You can see it with your own eyes. I mean, if a person was here and I threw in The Shining or Black Swan or whatever, I can point this out to you as the movie was going along. And it's not ambiguous. I mean, there it is. That's one of the things that always fascinates me with this is some of it is really not open to speculation. I mean, you'll see it with your own two eyes. And that's what, in my opinion, at any rate, makes it such a fascinating study.
We got a question from the chats. Was the movie Back to the Future about 9/11?
Well, the Back to the Future trilogy is too far removed from 9/11. You're too far out with that one. You're dealing with 15 years out. I mean, some of it is interesting. You know, I mean,
Yeah, but
I don't get into
Trading Places had that 9/11 thing.
I don't get into the whole realm of like, you know, taking a movie, pausing it, standing on your head, seeing something upside down. I mean, you can do that with anything. I mean, you can do that.
That reminds us of trying to pause
Alice in Wonderland.
Alice in Wonderland.
We found a symbol. Oh, we should send this to you. We did find a symbol in Alice in Wonderland when the elevator, was it an elevator? What happened, Darren? When she fell. When
she's falling or whatever.
She's falling. Right at the end, there's like 3 digits, like a weird symbol.
I'd have to see it. I'd have to see it with my own eyes. I can't remember it. I don't know which. There's so many Alice in Wonderland movies.
I'll email it to you and just.
It was the original. I remember.
It took us forever to pause it on the actual frame where the symbol was.
The Back to the Future trilogy is basically a study in comparative religion, which deals with the Egyptian, you know, religion of Osiris, Isis, and Horus. It's really a great study in comparative mythology, comparative religion. I mean, there is some interesting 9/11 imagery. I mean, or imagery that, you know, goes back several years. I think the one that always kind of stood out for me was that goes back to the early 80s was Escape from New York, where, I mean, you had a couple things going on. You had the plane crashing Air Force One in Lower Manhattan, and then a few scenes later you had Snake Plissken landing the little glider on the top of the World Trade Center. I think it was World Trade Center 2, if I remember correctly. I always thought that was you know, kind of foreshadowing. But when you go back that far, it's kind of hard to link it up. The stuff that is really fascinating is the stuff where you get into like 3-4 years beforehand, you know, with stuff like The Matrix and Fight Club and Vanilla Sky and what's the other one? Donnie Darko and
right. Neo's passport expired on September 11th. That's the other one.
Yeah, and Neo's passport in The Matrix, and I mean that's another thing that's you know, you're dealing with almost the world of the supernatural with, and this is something I've mentioned in the book. I have a whole chapter in it called Gnostic Hollywood, and I don't know why this is. I can't reconcile it, but you really did. I mean, it could have been planned. I don't think it was. Where you had at the turn of the millennium, a few years beforehand, you had this slate. I mean, this rash of Gnostic movies coming out. I mean, it was all the ones we love to talk about. It's all the ones I just mentioned, you know, The Matrix, Fight Club, Truman Show, Donnie Darko, Vanilla Sky, 13th Floor, you know, of all coming out, you know, with all deal, you know, they all deal with, you know, consciousness, self-awareness, know thyself. And was this had to do with the turn of the millennium? Did this have to do with, oh, I don't know, you know, the precession of the equinox, the end of the Piscean age, the start of Aquarius? I mean, we can go on and on and on. But, you know, you did have this slate of, I mean, and it's all the Gnostic movies we always wind up talking about that came out in this time frame from about 1997 to 2001 or so. And it's just astounding. And that to me, it didn't seem planned. It just seems to be more psychological synchronicity relating to the turn of the millennium. But it's interesting to say the least.
How do you find the current state of cinema?
Because
you must have to. You're digesting all this stuff, right? You're very much on the front line.
I mean, it's a good question. I think Hollywood still makes some superior films. I was on a show and they were lamenting they didn't think Hollywood put out anything good of late, and I disagree. I mean, the
Joker.
Two movies that I actually stopped the press on the book to include was Midsommar and Joker. I actually had Cinema Symbolism 3 done, or nearly done, and I saw in early 2000, I think it was January of 2020, I saw Joker and Midsommar, and I was so impressed with those movies that I actually halted the publication of the book to include them in there. And I mean, I love those two movies. I love the other Ari Aster movie, Hereditary. I thought that was fantastic. I really like that. I mean, these are all movies within the last 5 years, of course. I'm looking forward to seeing
the new Matrix.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the new Matrix. It looks like we're getting into, I saw the trailer for that. It looks like we're getting into like a parallel universe Mandela effect almost with that one, where maybe there's more than one Neo, more than one Trinity. I thought that was kind of the vibe the trailer threw out to me. I don't know if it's coming out in 2021 or 2022, but there's the new Batman movie. That looks very good. There's the new Halloween Kills movie. That looks very good. They got now. It looks like from the what was it? The trailer. They got Michael Myers' house now on a ley line. It looks like. So we'll see what happens with that.
Nice. I like that.
You know. And so no, there's some movies coming out that I very much want to see. I mean, like anything else, I mean, there's some duds over the years, some things that I've seen that I thought were kind of schlocky, or maybe just made to turn a buck or whatever. But no, I mean, there's been some films that I've seen that I've been really, really impressed with of late, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens going forward. But no, some of the ones in The Matrix 4, yeah, of course, got to see that one.
What about Dune? Are you excited for Dune?
Yes, I'm excited for Dune.
Wheel of Time? Wheel of Time?
Is Wheel of Time going into a movie?
Into a series, TV series. But that's very much the monomyth. I mean, the first book of the Wheel of Time is that guy in the small town getting approached and, going on his journey.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I'm not familiar with the book or the TV, but you sound like you nailed it right on the head if that's what it is. And the new Dune. I was a fan of the Lynch one. I always liked the one with that David Lynch did from the '80s, and certainly the new one looks really good. Yeah, I had a friend of mine in England email me the trailer for that, and I agree. I want to see it very much.
When's that coming up, Darren? Like soon?
I don't know.
Is it a movie or a series?
Yeah, it was supposed to come out a couple of times now. I'm not crazy about the fact that they made Liet Kynes a woman, and I'm curious to see what's happening. I mean, I don't mean that in anything sort of sexist sort of way, but I mean the whole sort of book series, and I've read them all, is set up around this whole specific way of the Fremen culture, and it seems like they're just sort of doing a whole about face on it.
Yeah. They do that sometimes. They tweak it, and they turn it into something that it wasn't really intended. It looks like the one thing that will be interesting to see with the new Batman movie, the one. I know Dune was supposed to be released. It's been pushed back. I know that happened with Batman because of COVID. I don't know. I mean, I can't remember if it's coming out in 21 or 22, but they turned, from what I can tell, in the trailers and the little bit I've seen of it, they got the Riddler kind of is playing this jigsaw Saw type villain, where the clues or the riddles are like these deadly death traps. So I mean, but it looks good. It looks interesting to say the least. So I look forward to seeing that very much. So no, I mean, I like, and there was a couple others that I saw. Oh, I like the. I like the Conjuring movies. I think they're very good. The three Conjuring movies, and then I kind of enjoyed. I like the Annabelle movies. I like The Nun and La Llorona. I thought they were well done. They were entertaining. They have a lot going on in them. So I'm okay with the state of Hollywood. I'm happy with some of the movies I've seen of late.
Can you take us through one of the movies in the new book?
In Cinema Symbolism 3?
Yeah.
Sure. Which
one's your favorite? Or do you have one in mind, Graham?
No, let's see what he I have a bunch of other questions, so let's see what he thinks for that.
I mean, I thought one of the ones that I thought that was really exhaustive was just one of the ones I mentioned was Midsommar. Ari Aster. There's so much going on in that film. I mean, he loves foreshadowing. I mean, and you'll find that a theme in Hereditary. And I mean, Midsommar was just overloaded with Norse mythology and symbolism. And I mean, it draws upon, I mean, the one thing that it kind of, I got out of it right away was a really dark not Alice in Wonderland, Wizard of Oz. I mean, it was almost, sort of like a very dark Wizard of Oz style movie where the girl was almost playing like Dorothy, going on this dark adventure with these three characters who run parallel with the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Cowardly Lion.
Huh.
And then what makes Midsommar so complex then is once you get done that analysis and just the occult themes in it and what have you, then you've got to go back and do this whole nother study with the runes, with the younger and elder Futhark. They turn up all over the place and they have meaning. And that was in a study in of itself. So Midsommar was quite exhausting. I very much like doing that one. That was a very good movie, I thought, and I very much enjoyed writing that and analyzing the movie and watching it several times. So that was one that I really enjoyed doing in the third book. And again, Joker, and some of the Gnostic films, Vanilla Sky. I really like that one with Tom Cruise and Penelope Cruz. I thought that was a good movie. I always used to say, and I'll end it on this. I always kind of thought up until I did that portion, I always thought that The Matrix was sort of the ultimate sort of foreshadowing 9/11 movie. I kind of had a bit of a change of heart on that when I watched Vanilla Sky. True, the movie was released after September 11th, 2001. I believe it was released in December of '01, so a little after. Certainly, it was filmed well before September 11th, 2001. And when the terrorist attack hit, it was likely in post-production. And if you've seen the movie, I mean, I guess I will have to spoil it here a little bit, but I mean, the end scene of that is just uncanny, where Tom Cruise has to make this decision. He's on top of this very enormously tall skyscraper overlooking the Twin Towers in New York, and he has to make this decision. And to make a long story short, he leaps off the building. I mean, you just think, my God, I mean, how prophetic was this? And it's very poignant to watch and very sad to watch. And yeah, so that was something that was sad to write about, but something that I did put in the book, and it's very heartening, to say the least.
I like the way you split it up into, some Jungian and alchemy type things, the Gnostic part, and then the golem making. I mean, the mummy, the automaton reimagined, and then you get into the monomyth stuff at the end, and also the sort of the romantic Satanism. You kind of included that in there as there was a little bit of sort of sexual, sort of romantic Satanism. Do you want to touch on that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You get into these ideas, and Hollywood loves to do this with the book. With the movies, is they go into a lot of mystical fields. Hollywood has no problem, I mean, using the Hermetic statue, golem making, romantic Satanism. This is something that runs parallel with Gnosticism, because you're dealing with this inversion. It's an inversion where the devil is viewed as the good guy, and Jehovah and the guardian angels, Gabriel and Raphael, what's the word I'm looking for? I forget the name of it. No. Yeah, that's it. The seraphim. That's it. That's the word I'm looking for. These are the villains, and you'll find this, where it's like a reversal almost, and you find this in Gnosticism also, where Jehovah is viewed as the oppressor, and the devil or Lucifer is viewed as the liberator, the light bearer, as it were. So you find that going on. But yeah, I mean, golem making with Roy Batty and in Blade Runner and Frankenstein's monster. Yeah, I mean, Smurfette even in the Smurfs is a Kabbalistic golem brought to life by that's really one of the classic ones that is constantly overlooked. I mean, Gargamel, is this sort of left-hand path magician sorcerer who has this lump of clay and molds it into a human-like form, and through black magic. I mean, if you ever watch the cartoon, I mean, down in his little hovel, he has this, book of black magic that he uses to animate the lump of clay, turns it into Smurfette. The whole purpose of Smurfette is, from Gargamel, is to send it into the Smurf village and to sow, discord and chaos to destroy it. Of course, she ultimately gets turned around, through white magic, and becomes the little heroine that she is. But the Smurfette figure is actually a golem. I mean, it's a Jewish lump of clay it's a lump of clay brought to life by Jewish magic. Numbers, spells, the whole thing, by Gargamel. Very interesting. I mean, and this is the same thing you'll find with Frankenstein's monster, and Roy Batty and the robots in the robot runs parallel with this. The mummy also, the dead thing coming back to life. These all owe their origin into these ancient, legends and magic that Hollywood uses all the time. No doubt about it.
I was thinking the other day when I was watching a movie, it was a while ago now, but it might be, maybe it's this inversion thing, but they start to do these movies where the heroes are the villains, like they're the people that are doing all the crimes and doing all that. Is that part of the same thing? Like, do you see an increase in that theme in movies right now? And
I
it's
don't know if
not
I
so
see-
much the superhero thing, but like the international capers and all that, or where the villains are actually like they make them out to be the good guys.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of an archetype, and you do find it. I mean, it goes back to film. It's sort of what you call like the anti-hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what I was just on another show and I was asked the same question. It relates to a phase in alchemy known as the Negredo, and there's 4 phases of alchemy, and the element that is present in all 4 phases is mercury or mercurius, and this is what makes alchemy possible. It's a destructive agent, and in the anti-hero embodies this notion of this idea of mercurius, this destructive agent lingering in this phase called the Negredo, which is the blackening decay phase. This gives rise to this psychological character known as the anti-hero. And it's really the 2 greatest examples I can think of this is Hannibal Lecter and Frank Booth. This is Dennis Hopper in Blue Velvet. The anti-hero's almost sole motivation is just a destructive force that is just meant to break down. I mean, this is what alchemy is. This is what Mercurius does. This is what Mercury does. It breaks down the element of base metal to transform it into something else, and this is what the characters often do. If you look at this, I mean, this is what Hannibal Lecter does. He takes Clarice Starling and breaks her down, annihilates her completely, only to rebuild her into this stronger figure, this FBI agent. And this is what Frank Booth does also to the character, Carl McLaughlin's character, Jeffrey Beaumont in Blue Velvet. I mean, he destroys him. He takes him. He breaks him down. He even annihilates his manhood at one point by kissing him. And this is the dragon Mercurius, destroying this character, breaking him down so that he can become something else. I mean, this is alchemy. This is alchemy 101. Huh. And of course, if you pay attention to this, in the film, Jeffrey Beaumont, again, this is Carl McLaughlin, says this is what he is after. He says to Sandy, this is Laura Dern, at the very beginning of the movie. I mean, he says something, detective, we need to have these darker experiences in this world, these other experiences, so that we can have enlightenment. And of course, be careful of what you wish for, because you will inevitably encounter this character who will break you down only to rebuild you into something else. And it's usually in a more enlightened worldly figure. So, yeah, I mean, this is an archetype. This is a very popular one. I mean, the Frank Booth character in Blue Velvet is incredibly popular. I mean, he's very well remembered. It's probably Dennis Hopper's probably one of his most renowned, well-known parts. And same with Hannibal Lecter, of course. I mean, Anthony Hopkins won the Oscar for it, for God's sake. So it's a very popular archetype, and it's something, yeah, again, that I like analyzing.
What about when it's groups or teams? Like, I'm thinking of all the, there's a whole bunch of these caper type where there's Ocean's 11 or all these people that are, in these groups that are actually like, stealing stuff or doing crimes, but they're sort of heroes,
The difference between those they're just like you said, they're guys doing crime. That's interesting and stuff like that. The real anti-hero, those guys are alchemists. I mean, those guys are taking base metal and transforming it into something else. The Ocean 11's guys are just stealing money. It's a great movie. I love it. And, again, you get into the, you can find the archetype, the smooth talker. You'll find the same, you'll see these fine themes in like Reservoir Dogs with, the characters in that. And it's good stuff. But I like the more Gnostic, and alchemical characters. I think they're they're the ones that I think are probably remembered a little bit more. Yeah,
the monomyth. I mean, it is still interesting to me that we. Do you think that's intentionally, like, is Hollywood creating these stories, or even authors or writers? I mean, is it an intentional thing, or is the monomyth just something that we inherently gravitate to and know about and write about?
I think, yeah. No, I understand the question. It's a great question. I think personally, me speaking, I think it's the latter. I think it's just something that's so transcendent that you can't avoid it.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I think one of the examples I give in the book is, I mean, people know, and I probably have talked about it. I know I've talked about it on other shows. I probably even mentioned on here at some point in time in one of the other programs. I mean, you get into stuff like Star Wars, the Harry Potter, even the Matrix films, where the monomyth is somewhat easy to recognize.
Lord of the Rings, yeah.
The call to adventure, the supernatural aid. The Threshold Guardians. The one thing I took on in, I mentioned in Cinema Symbolism 3, I said, you don't realize until you step back and look at this thing, how transcendent this monomyth is. And the example I took was, I said, take a movie that's probably like as far away from Star Wars and Harry Potter as you could get, and let's try to apply the monomyth to it. And the movie I selected was Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah.
Was the Burt Reynolds movie from the late 1970s. And of course, this was when, trucking and CB radios were very popular. I actually saw that. I was a kid at the time, and I saw Smokey and the Bandit in the theater. And I said, look, I mean, let's break this down a little bit. I said, are not, Big Enos and Little Enos Burdett Threshold Guardians? I mean, couldn't you craft an argument saying these are the guys who put, Bandit and Snowman on their cross-country adventure? I mean, and isn't the interaction, and the chase by Buford T. Justice, isn't this the road of trials of Joseph Campbell? Isn't the Buford T. Justice character the ogre father, the Darth Vader character? Do we not have Meeting with the Feminine, Meeting with the Goddess, with the Sally Field character Frog? Isn't this the monomyth? And it is. And that was what, and that was the example I gave, to show the reader, just how transcendent this is, that when you look at these movies, I mean, just about every movie you can probably point your finger at will have some form of fashion, some trace of the monomyth in it. I mean, it's just something that is so transcendent, and mythological, that I think that it's almost next to impossible to escape it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I butchered at the beginning, I was trying to say is that now it's taken me years to kind of realize that how ingrained all this really is in Hollywood. Because at first you just think, oh, it's just a bunch of movies, and but when you start the whole book off, like in the preface with, the final Rose Croix Salon defines Hollywood's methodology in the following century. Like, man needs neither pure truth nor perfect realization. Man needs mystery, not to penetrate it, but to experience it. So it kind of just hits home to me that they've been talking about this stuff and writing about this stuff for over 100 years or 150 years, and that's sort of pervasive. It started with Hollywood way back then. I mean, this stuff has been in there ever since,
Oh, sure. Absolutely. It's a great point you're making. And absolutely. I mean, this material, this mysticism, this occultism, if you want to use that word, I think it's an appropriate word to use, predates Hollywood. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
But Hollywood now is that vehicle, though, the modern vehicle that they never had before,
Absolutely. No, I agree. I agree with what you're saying 100%. I mean, Hollywood is the latest incarnation of it and the continuation of it, no doubt. Briefly, if you go back in time, pre-Hollywood, I mean, you'll find this in the works of Mozart, in the Magic Flute. You'll find this material, the monomyth and things related to it, in the works of Richard Wagner. You can find Gnosticism hidden in the work of Herman Melville in Moby Dick. You can, where Ahab is a demiurgic-like figure. Edgar Allan Poe. We can find mesmerism in the works of Edgar Allan Poe. And Poe uses symbolism. He uses allegory. He uses illusion. The Cast of Amontillado is a retelling of the anti-Masonic affair of the 1820s with William Morgan, where the character of Fortunato, the clown figure, is bricked up with the Mason's trowel and disappears, and is a stand-in for Morgan, who also disappeared. So you will find this material predating Hollywood. You'll find it in the American, Renaissance of the 19th century. You'll find it in the works of Mozart. You'll find it, my God, in the works of Shakespeare, which has, solar Rosicrucian allegories in it all over the place. And it gives rise to the whole idea that Shakespeare, as we know him, was not some eighth grade educated actor in Stratford in England. There is no way possible. I'm not trying to talk conspiracy here, but there is no way some actor with an eighth grade education who had never ventured more than probably 10 miles outside of Stratford could be writing the greatest masterpieces of the English language and encoding people like John Dee, Giordano Bruno, into these works, or the Medici in France, or in Florence, Italy. This had to be Sir Francis Bacon. It had to be. And you will find this material, this mysticism, this occultism predating Hollywood. And I completely agree with you. Hollywood is just the latest incarnation of it.
Yeah, you've got a great little line here in the book. The impetus of all symbolism has its origin in something more than the desire for brevity. Instead, its sole purpose is secrecy, message communication, furthering an agenda known to the initiated few. Which is like what you're getting into with the Shakespeare stuff, and there's some hidden ciphers in there that it's just really.
Isn't the whole title just like a crazy cipher?
The front cover of the sonnets, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
of what,
so
Shakespeare?
The front cover of the sonnets has like 7 or 8 mathematical principles built into it, or something like that. We had Alan Green on a couple times to talk about that. And he kind of goes through all the players, and he thinks Shakespeare in the end was like an amalgamation of a group of people.
Yeah. It was probably led by Bacon, and
Bacon was on the team. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have John Dee is Prospero in The Tempest. Giordano Bruno, the magician, is Barone in Love's Labor Lost. In Romeo and Juliet, the two families, what is it, the Montague and the Capulets, that's the Pazzi and the Medicis of Florence, Italy. Who would have, who had the diplomacy to know all this and had the connections to know all this? Sir Francis Bacon is definitely, like you said, on that team, no question about it.
Yeah, I love that. So what else? What else do we want to talk about your book here? And I guess I feel like it's just, and maybe it's just where I'm at right now, but it does feel like it's got a darker tinge to it. Was that some of this stuff left over from your other books, or how did you decide to put all this together, and what to leave out of it for your fourth book?
Yeah. There was really nothing I left out of it for the fourth book, because there was more. The fourth book I can't do yet because I still have to see the movies. Like I said, I can't guarantee that Halloween Kills will have anything worth talking
yeah,
about.
Exactly.
But based on the last one, I'm assuming it will, but we'll see. I don't know how that darker tone got in there. I agree with you that it is. It was just probably something that I felt was necessary because, I don't know. I can't explain it. I agree with you 100% that it's definitely probably darker than the other two, but it probably was a conscious decision. I guess maybe I was not maybe holding back information. I was maybe saying, let's keep an open mind here, and we have to always consider the fact that this stuff is appearing in film, and maybe this is maybe
it's the manifestation of what's happening. Yeah.
Maybe we have to always keep in mind the intention that it's intentional, and we always have to bear that in mind.
Yeah, and I don't mean dark as in intentionally dark either, or because who knows, right? But because you've got stuff like Eliphas Levi's Baphomet and some of Crowley's stuff, a lot of like the Wolfman, and it just feels like it's a little bit more like that, even some of the pictures, but I don't mean that that's dark. It's all subjective. Sure. So some people would think that's not dark, but it just got that feeling. So how many times you got to watch? Like, because I pictured myself. You get so deep into some of these. I'm like, how many times does he have to watch a movie like to do that? Could you catch a lot of it in 1 or 2 sittings, or? No,
it's a good question. I really can't do it in a movie theater. I might be able to pick up on some general things, but. In a darkened movie theater, you can't make notes. And the one thing that, for me personally, in order to do this, I have to have the film at my fingertips. And what I mean by that is I have to have it on DVD or Blu-ray where I can pause it, move backwards, move forwards, because some of it's just so subtle. I mean, and something happening later could be referred to earlier on, and vice versa. And it takes me multiple times to see it. I don't have to watch it 100 times or anything like that, but usually 3, 4, maybe 5 times. There are some movies, I was just on another podcast talking about this. There are some movies that every time I watch them now, I feel like I'm picking up on something new.
Yeah, yeah.
It almost never ends.
Yeah, like just like reading a good book sometimes, you're like, I feel like I've never read this before, even though you've read it 3 or 4 times.
Absolutely. The one movie that just jumps off the page of me with what you're saying is Black Swan. I mean, it seems like every time I see that, I haven't watched it in a while, but it seems like every time I wind up watching that, I see something new. And Aronofsky is just such a grand master at this. That doesn't surprise me. But no, I have to watch the movie more than once. I have to watch it at home where I can, like I said, with the Blu-ray or the DVD and pause it and jump around. That's critical. Like I said, if I see something in the theater, I might be able to, pick up on some general themes or an Easter egg here and there. But really, to do the study properly and really pick it apart and get every little detail, it has to be. I have to have it on Blu-ray or in a format where I can watch it over and over again and pause it, jump around, things like that.
Stand upside down.
Stand upside down. Spit nickels in the corner.
So,
exactly.
What do you think about this in our collective consciousness and the co-creation of our reality and all these dystopian movies that have come out and all the ones that seem to be, I mean, I saw some memes today that are just right out of the Hunger Games. I mean, there's stuff going on. It seems like that Hollywood sort of, I don't know if they're co-creating it or predicting it, or just because it's this dystopian sort of theme of society splitting up and the underground resistant and the kind of, the technocratic elite type thing. I know you didn't really cover a lot of that in Symbolism 3, but do you have any thoughts on that?
I understand the question. I mean, it is, Hollywood does seem to, not always, but seems to be able to predict some of this stuff. You wonder how much has been intentional. We may never know. We can only speculate. I mean, unless someone comes out and says it, which has happened. I remember the one example I can give was the Navy, the United States. This is a true story. The Navy had invented a rail gun. This is the thing you see in video games. I mean, if you've ever played any sort of shoot 'em up video games, one of your weapons will inevitably be a rail gun, this thing that fires an electromagnetic pulse. And the Navy actually invented this, and they put it on display, and they announced it to the world through a movie. It was the one Transformer movie. I can't remember which one it was.
The one where they went to the dark side of the moon, I think, probably.
Yeah, where the Navy fires a railgun blast at the 2 Transformers fighting on top of the pyramids in Egypt, of all things.
Yeah.
And they actually had an admiral come out and say this, said, oh, yeah, we invented the railgun, and we spoke to the producers and wanted it in there, and there it was. And Hollywood has been doing this. This isn't the first time. You go back to the beginning of World War II. I mean, you'll definitely find movies like Yankee Doodle Dandy with Jimmy Cagney. That's clearly war propaganda. The first couple with Universal, with Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce, the first couple of the Sherlock Holmes movies that they did for Universal were World War II propaganda, were anti-Nazi, pro-ally war propaganda. So there is a nexus with the government and Hollywood. And even the FBI admitted to proofreading the X-Files scripts to make for accuracy when that was back in the 90s. Hollywood does have a hand in this. They're very powerful. Media, Hollywood movies, this is obviously one of the most powerful mediums ever created. And it can affect, this is one of the things I say in the book, it can affect reality. And it's a fine line between life imitating art and art imitating life. It's hard to distinguish sometimes.
That's exactly what I'm getting at. I mean, who knows if you just put that into enough consciousness, you never know what can be created.
Yeah, it's so someone posed to me a question. I don't, it's hard. It's hard. I don't know. I don't necessarily, I buy it or anything, but someone actually, I can't remember if I got it in an email or how it came to me. It may have been in a chat room, but someone actually posed the idea that, like with the 9/11 stuff with Hollywood, with this 9/11 imagery, being used, and in the lead up to it, like you said, we've talked about it with the Matrix and Vanilla Sky and True, or what was the other one?
Baron Trump, even. I mean, you get into that
Fight Club, and all that stuff with the lead up to it. Is Hollywood actually generating the event?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't answer that, but it is interesting to think about.
Yeah, I mean, you even cover at the beginning, like you've got illustrations in there covering the Baron Trump's marvelous underground journey and all that. I mean, that's sort of one of those things right there. Is it time travel, or is it just precog or coincidence or synchromistic or what?
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to reconcile, but there it is. And is it life imitating reality, or is it vice versa, or is it like with the stuff of 9/11? Is it actually not only predicting it, but is it causing it to happen? Who knows?
Yeah. Darren, do you got any more questions before we start wrapping it up?
Do I have any more? Yeah. What's your favorite movie all time? Best movie all time?
Oh boy. Oh my God. I don't know if I can't put my finger on my favorite movie of all time.
You can give me three.
I guess some of the top ones would be, I always liked Fight Club. I thought that was a great movie. I liked Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Oh my God, really? That's so great. I love that you love that.
Which one?
The Holy Grail. I mean,
of course.
It's like the ultimate troll movie. It says Darren doesn't get it. Well, the only time Darren saw it, he was on mushrooms, but I'll have to try that again.
No, you can't go wrong with Holy Grail.
It's like one scene after another that are just like trolling us completely. I love it.
I of course like the first Star Wars movie. I mean, I'm Generation X, so I grew up on that. So it'd be hard pressed for me not to say that. And of course, I'm a huge horror fan. So I mean, all the horror classics. I mean, I like of course The Exorcist and The Omen, and then even going back to the Universal films with the Wolfman and Dracula and The Mummy with Karloff. These are movies I grew up on as a child, so I mean those are always good ones. So those are some of my favorite ones of all time.
And those are ones that have really affected. I didn't realize we had another guest on talking about The Exorcist, and you wrote about that in your book, in this book, about how it affected people. I mean, the Exorcist affected people like crazy. They're getting sick and freaked out in the theaters. I mean, it really shows you how powerful movies are.
Absolutely. I mean, The Exorcist is a great example. People were having anxiety attacks and throwing up and passing out just sitting in the theater watching this thing. I mean, even now, I mean, what's it almost going on 50 years later? I mean, when they came in at 73, so you're almost at 50 years on this thing. I mean, this is still considered, one of the most terrifying movies ever made. And I think it's a moniker that it's well-deserved because it is a very scary movie.
Yeah. Right on. Do you want to? Is there anything else you want to cover before we let you go, Robert?
No, I just say thank you guys for having me on Grimerica once again. It was my pleasure to be here. When Cinema Symbolism 4 is released, we'll do it all over again.
For sure, let's do it. Yeah, I mean, honestly, you've got me. I'm going to watch a few more movies. You've got me inspired to watch a few more movies. I haven't been watching a lot of movies lately, but I feel like there's a couple in here that you mentioned that I'm gonna give her a try.
Absolutely. Go check them out and check them out. And again, thank you for having me on. It was a terrific show, and we'll do this all over again. And anytime you need a guest or want to have, a movie chat, I'm always here, and you can always reach out to me. And certainly when when a new movie book comes out, I'll definitely reach out. But it was my pleasure to be here, and thank you again for having me on.
Thanks, buddy.
Right on. Thanks, Robert.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Okay. Bye-bye. And that was our chat with Robert W. Sullivan IV. What do you think, buddy?
Yeah, well, it was good. Yeah. It was. I forgot he was such a fast talker. I like that.
You like the fast talkers?
I like the fast talkers. Yeah.
You don't need a ton of convincing to get back into the movie watch today. You're just like, ooh.
Well, like the ones that he was mentioning, that with all the ones,
Fight Club?
the Midsommar, and I've been wanting to watch Fight Club again, but I'll probably watch ones I haven't seen yet.
I haven't watched Fight Club in a long time.
Did you ever watch The Joker?
I watched part of it.
Oh, really? You didn't get through it?
No.
Wow. Why?
Well, because usually, you just throw it on until you fool around. What's the point of the movie?
Oh, my God.
I don't know if I've seen any of those movies in the third book. But I've seen The Joker right up to the part where he shoots Robert De Niro in the face.
Oh yeah, you've seen lots of the movies. The other one I wanted to do was
spoiler alert.
The Middle Earth Bilbo Baggins. I don't think I watched all his the whole Hobbit, like the original Hobbit, not the Hobbit, but actually
I've never seen the
Return to
whole
Middle-earth.
Hobbit. No, it was too terrible.
I don't think I saw the Battle of the Five Armies. I'm gonna have to.
What's
watch
the Battle
some
of the
those.
Five
That's-
Armies?
That's one of those in the series for the
The
Middle
Lord
Earth.
of the Rings.
Yeah.
You never seen the Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, no, this is the prequels. Like, I
What?
don't think I saw
What's a
all the
prequel?
prequels. Bilbo Baggins.
I seen that one. The Hobbit.
No, that's different. Hobbit is part of the Return. I think it's. No, you might be right. Unexpected Journey is probably the Hobbit, and then there's two others afterwards. The Smog one with the dragon. Do you remember that?
The dragon. Did they
Smog.
make the Hobbit into a trilogy too?
Now I'm confused. Yeah, that's what I'm
There's the
saying.
Lord of the Rings trilogy.
And then there's
The
Unexpected
Fellowship of the Ring.
and the Two Towers and the Return of the King.
I didn't know those two. Thanks for bailing me out there. And then they added the Hobbit. Did they do more?
Yeah, there's the Return to Middle Earth, Bilbo Baggins and the Monomyth.
Isn't that the Hobbit?
I don't think so.
Click on it. I'm sure it is.
Click on it.
I mean, the movie's not called Bilbo Baggins and the Monomyth. Do you think that's what the movie's called? That's what his chapter's called.
Yeah, that's a good point. But he thought he was using the actual title.
Bilbo Baggins and the Monomyth. That's
Oh my
what they...
God, no, not that part of it. The Hobbit trilogy. Okay.
Is the Hobbit a trilogy?
And Unexpected Journey. See, that's the first one, right? That's the first one. And then the Desolation of Smog.
What?
And then the Battle of the Five Armies. Those are all it's the Hobbit trilogy. But I don't think I ever.
When did they come out?
That's what I mean. Since we started the podcast, like 2013 and 2014.
I've seen part of the first one.
Yeah, me too. That was the main one that came out probably way back.
I read the
2012.
book.
Huh. I think I gave up on it after the first one, to be honest.
The books were all
I
right
don't
for.
know. I don't know. Maybe
for,
I watched
like,
Smog. I don't know. I'm
entry-level
confused now,
stuff, but I mean, it's all sort of like
I know.
not for my
it's kind of
fancy
for
to be more
kids.
fucking hardcore.
Yeah.
Anyway, big thanks to Rob for coming on the show. Big thanks to you guys for listening. Even bigger thanks if you're one of the few, one of 1%ers, 1.5%ers, whatever the number's at these days, that chooses to support the work, the magnum opus. Grimerica.ca/support. Sometimes people get the illusion this is a free show. Not a free show. Value for value show. We put the show out into the world for free.
We couldn't do it without everybody.
We
supporting.
couldn't. The show would have only made it to like episode 170 something. And that's when people started supporting. It's right when we were thinking of quitting. Couldn't afford it. Just kidding. But we wouldn't be doing it anymore if we didn't have the supporters that we do have. And like I say, we put it out in the world for free in the hopes that if you guys are finding some value from the shows, whether adding some value to your day, to your commute, to your work day, to your workout, wherever you're listening, if that show podcast is making an hour and a half, 2 hours of your week a little bit better, head over to Grimerica.ca/support today. You decide how much. Sign up for $1 a month, $2 a month. How much are those 4 episodes worth? You decide. Maybe you could do one-time donation. There's a bunch of different options. Stripe, Patreon, coin stuff, all that. You can do it all. You can email us. You can send us cash in a book. Whatever you want to do. You could head over to GrimericaOutlawed.ca. Sign up for the Plus show over there. Or you can just listen to a couple of the free shows. An extra hour a week of content. Graham getting all revved up over COVID and stuff. It's great. He's like spitting. Fantastic shows over there. Check out a few, see if you like them. If you do like them, sign up for Plus. What else we got? We got Adult Brain.
AdultBrain.ca, your book.
AdultBrain.ca. If you want to check out all the audiobooks we've done. What's the one coming out, Lee? We got the Religion of the Chinese coming out right away.
I just took a look for that to put a link into the Rockfin that we just did, but I couldn't find it. So it's
The audiobook?
not out yet. Yeah.
It's not out yet. No, I haven't even submitted it yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm still waiting. But soon. And ISIS Unveiled. We'll be submitting the next day or two, so that'll be out by the end of the month.
That's
ISIS
another long
Unveiled,
one.
Volume 1. Looking like it's going to come in around 30 hours, 35 hours again. This is
Oh my
that
God.
sweet spot, 35 hours. Dunlop loves the long books. A CanadianShame.ca. If you want to check out my book, A Canadian Shame, the Indian Act in Residential Schools, you can get the ebook or the audiobook or the paperback. No hard copy yet. I think you got to sell so many before they'll let you do that. But anyway, if you guys can go buy that or share it around or whatever you got to do to help me get the bestseller list, that'd be awesome. Love you for it. Just kidding, but you could go check that out. What else we got? That's it?
Yep.
That's it. We love you, motherfuckers. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. We won't see you next week.
No, we won't. We're gone next week.
If you're listening to the podcast, we would have seen you next week. That's why we said that. But if you're the people that are tuned into the live show, we will not see you next week because Graham's out of here. You're leaving when? Thursday?
Yep.
What's today? Tuesday?
Tuesday, yep.
Vacation starts in 2 days? I guess it's
It's
work.
not vacation. It's work, yeah. But
So hard that
couple days.
Yeah, you have to leave the house. Down to Washington for a event. Washington Scablands trip
Scablands,
with
yeah, that'd be
Randall
good,
Carlson, Brandon Powell, Brothers of the Serpent, Ben from Uncharted, Mark from After School is going
Brad
to be
Young will
there.
be there.
Brad Young's going to be there. The Brothers of the Serpent. What a fucking blast we are going to have.
Yeah.
Hanging out with some fantastic cats down there. I mean, we should do a show with Mark over there.
Yeah, we should. Yeah.
So we're doing that. Head over to contact@thecabin.com if you want to get in on our February event. That is the only event. Actually, no, that's to do. There's currently availability for Montana and Arizona next year. Everything else is sold out. So get on that if you wanna. If you want to break from the insanity. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in the live show. We'll be back in 2 weeks.